Murder on the Orient Express 2017 film. Murder on the Orient Express is a 2017 mystery thriller film directed by Kenneth Branagh with a screenplay by Michael Green based on the 1934 novel of the same name by Agatha Christie. The film stars Branagh as Hercule Poirot, with Penélope Cruz, Willem Dafoe, Judi Dench, Johnny Depp, Josh Gad, Derek Jacobi, Leslie Odom Jr., Michelle Pfeiffer, and Daisy Ridley in supporting roles. The film is the fourth screen adaptation of Christie's novel, following the 1974 film, a 2001 TV film version, and a 2010 episode of the television series Agatha Christie's Poirot. The plot follows Poirot, a world-renowned detective, as he investigates a murder on the luxury Orient Express train service in the 1930s. Principal photography began in November 2016 in the United Kingdom. It is one of the few productions in recent decades to have used 65mm film cameras. Murder on the Orient Express had its world premiere on November 2, 2017, at the Royal Albert Hall in London, and was released in theaters in the United Kingdom on November 3, 2017, and in the United States on November 10, 2017, by 20th Century Fox. The film grossed over $351 million worldwide and received mixed to positive reviews from critics, with praise for the cast's performances and the production values, but some criticism for the screenplay and for not adding anything new to previous adaptations. A sequel, Death on the Nile, is scheduled to be theatrically released in the United States on February 11, 2022. Plot: in 1934, renowned Belgian detective Hercule Poirot solves a theft at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. He has OCD, seeks balance in life, and considers his case-solving ability to spot lies a curse. His friend Bach, the nephew of the director of the luxury Orient Express train service, arranges a bunk for him to return to London. Poirot boards the train with Bach and 13 other passengers: American widow Caroline Hubbard, American businessman Edward Ratchett, with his English manservant Edward Masterman and secretary/translator Hector McQueen, elderly Russian Princess Natalia Dragomirov, and her German maid Hildegard Schmidt, Hungarian diplomat Count Rud. Ratchett offers to hire Poirot to be his bodyguard during the three-day journey, having received anonymous threatening letters. However, Poirot refuses upon learning that Ratchett is a con artist. That night, Poirot hears noises coming from Ratchett's compartment and sees someone in a red kimono running down the hallway. An avalanche derails the train's engine, stranding the passengers. The next morning, Poirot discovers Ratchett has been murdered, stabbed a dozen times. Poirot and Bach investigate the passengers as repairs begin. Evidence indicates that Ratchett was murdered by one person who dealt several blows, and Mrs. Hubbard claims that a man was in her compartment in the night. Poirot discovers a partially burned note connecting Ratchett to the kidnapping of Daisy Armstrong, a little girl who was abducted from her bedroom and held for ransom. Though the family paid the ransom, Daisy was murdered. Ratchett's true identity is revealed. He was John Cassidy, Daisy's kidnapper and killer. The shock of her death caused her mother Sonia to suffer a fatal miscarriage. Her father, Colonel John Armstrong, who wrote to Poirot asking for his help. The family's nursemaid Suzanne was wrongly suspected of complicity, leading to her arrest and subsequent suicide in police custody, only to be found innocent afterward. More evidence is found, including a blood-stained handkerchief, and in Mrs. Hubbard's compartment, the button of a conductor's uniform. The red kimono is later found in Poirot's own suitcase, and the conductor's uniform is found in the cabin of one of the testifying passengers. Hubbard is suddenly stabbed in the back. She survives, but cannot identify the culprit. Poirot discovers many of the passengers have direct connections to the Armstrong family and uncovers their hidden pasts. While interviewing Debenham, Poirot is shot in the shoulder by Arbuthnot, who claims responsibility for the murder, but Bach stops him from killing Poirot. Poirot realizes that Arbuthnot, a doctor, and former Army sniper never meant to kill him. Poirot confronts the suspects outside the train, offering two theories of how Cassidy died. The first is simple but does not meet all of the facts. An agent of Ratchet's enemies disguised as a conductor boarded the train at a previous stop, murdered Cassidy, and fled at the stop as the train left. The second is more complex, with every single suspect connected to the Armstrongs, Susan, or her trial in some way, and all had a motive against Cassidy. McQueen's father was the district attorney for the kidnapping case, who was pressured into prosecuting Susan and sending her to prison, only for his career to be destroyed when the truth was discovered after her suicide. Masterman, who is terminally ill, was Colonel Armstrong's Batman during the war, and later his valet, who also acted as butler to the Armstrong household. Dr. Arbuthnot was Colonel Armstrong's comrade and best friend. Countess Androny nee Goldenberg, and real name Helena, was Sonia Armstrong's sister and Daisy's aunt. Count Androny was Sonia's brother-in-law. Princess Dragomirov was Sonia's godmother and a friend of her mother. Ms. Debenham was Sonia's secretary and Daisy's governess. Schmidt was the Armstrong family's cook, Millie's cook. Marquez was the Armstrong family's chauffeur. Estravados was Daisy's nurse. Hardman, whose real name is Cyrus and is American, was a former policeman in love with Suzanne. Pierre Mitchell, the train's conductor, was Suzanne's brother's 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 brother. Hubbard is revealed to be Linda Arden, a former stage actress and aspiring director, as well as Sonia's mother and Daisy's grandmother. Hubbard confirms Poirot's second theory, admitting that she planned the murder and had recruited everyone else to help her. All the other passengers and Mitchell took turns stabbing Cassidy. Debenham wore the kimono, and Arbuthnot stabbed Hubbard without endangering her life to convince Poirot of a lone killer. Poirot challenges the passengers and Mitchell to shoot him with a confiscated gun, since he is the only one who can expose their plot. Boke can lie, but Poirot, obsessed with truth and balance, cannot. Hubbard grabs the gun and tries to kill herself, but it is not loaded. Poirot wanted to see how the suspects would react, and her reaction confirms none of them are truly killers at heart. With the train back on track, Poirot concludes that justice is impossible in this case, as Cassidy deserved death and none of them deserve to go to jail. For the first time, Poirot will have to live with a lie and imbalance. He presents the lone killer theory to the Yugoslavian police, and they accept it, allowing the others to leave on the train. As he disembarks, a British Army messenger asks him to investigate a murder on the Bloody Nile, which Poirot accepts. Cast. Production. 20th Century Fox announced the project in December 2013. Michael Green wrote the screenplay for a new film adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express. On June 16, 2015, it was reported Fox was in talks with Kenneth Branagh to direct. On November 20, 2015, it was announced that Branagh would both direct the film and star in the role of Detective Hercule Poirot. He later said that he enjoyed finding the sort of obsessive-compulsive in Poirot rather than the dandy. In June 2016, Angelina Jolie entered into talks to join the cast of the film in the role of Mrs. Caroline Hubbard. However, it was later reported that Jolie had passed on the role and that Charlize Theron, among others, was in consideration for the role. In August 2016, Leslie Odom Jr. joined the cast. In September 2016, Tom Bateman, Johnny Depp, Michelle Pfeiffer, Daisy Ridley, Michael Pena, Judi Dench, Lucy Boynton, and Derek Jacobi joined the cast. In October 2016, Josh Gad and Marwan Kenzori joined the cast. In November 2016, Penelope Cruz joined the cast. In December 2016, Sergei Polunin joined the cast. In January 2017, Willem Dafoe and Manuel Garcia Rolfo joined the cast, with the latter replacing Pina, who had dropped out of the project. Principal photography on the film began on November 22, 2016, in the United Kingdom and concluded in May 2017. It used some of the same 65mm film cameras as Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. The two were among the very few to be shot on 65mm film since Branagh's Hamlet in 1996, and the only ones released in 2017. While in post-production, Branagh was Skyped in from thousands of miles away to watch Pfeiffer record an original song called Never Forget for the film's finale. As soon as we added it on to the end of the film, it joined seamlessly and gave a moment of reflection and consideration that the film needed and wanted, said Branagh. Release. A first look at the film and cast was released on May 3, 2017, in an exclusive article by Entertainment Weekly. Murder on the Orient Express was released in the United Kingdom on November 3, 2017, and in the United States on November 10, 2017, by 20th Century Fox. The film was released on digital HD on February 20, 2018, and on Ultra HD Blu-ray, DVD, and Blu-ray on February 27, 2018. Reception. Box office. Murder on the Orient Express grossed $102.08 million in North America and $250 million elsewhere, for a worldwide total of $352.08 million, against a production budget of $55 million. In the United States and Canada, Murder on the Orient Express was released alongside Daddy's Home 2 and was projected to gross around $20 million from 3,341 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $10.09 million on its first day, including $1.06 million from Thursday night previews at 2775 theaters. It ended up grossing $28.07 million, finishing third at the box office, behind holdover Thor, Ragnarok, and Daddy's Home 2. 51% of the film's opening weekend audience was over the age of 35. In its second weekend, the film took in $13.08 million, a drop of 51.9%, finishing fifth, behind Justice League, Wonder, Thor, Ragnarok, and Daddy's Home 2. Critical response. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 60% based on 295 reviews, with an average rating of 6.1/10. The website's critical consensus reads, "Stylish production and an all-star ensemble keep this Murder on the Orient Express from running off the rails, even if it never quite builds up to its classic predecessor's illustrious head of steam." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 52 out of 100 based on 46 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale. Lee Greenblatt of Entertainment Weekly gave the film a B+, calling it a lushly old-fashioned adaptation wrapped in a veritable turducken of pearls, monocles, and international movie stars. Blake Gobble of Consequence of Sound said, "Handsomely staged, exceptionally well cast, and reasonably faithful, Branagh has revived Murder on the Orient Express in a highly pleasing fashion." Trace Thurman of Bloody Disgusting gave the film 3.5 skulls and said, "For those looking for an involving murder mystery that is respectful of its source material and filled with an all-star cast, look no further than Murder on the Orient Express." Matt Goldberg of Collider gave the film a B, calling it a handsomely crafted production, albeit one that falls apart at the climax of the film. Josephine Livingstone of the New Republic praised the film's stylized gorgeousness, but wrote that Branagh's change of Poirot's fussiness into obsessive-compulsive tendencies was less distinct and, ultimately, less interesting. On the negative side, Matthew Jacobs of the Huffington Post was impressed by the cast, but ultimately felt Agatha Christie's whodunit has no steam. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone found that there were many dull moments and that the film was a needless remake. Richard Roeper of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 2.5 stars and stated that he felt it focused too much on Poirot to the detriment of the other characters, adding, "Never let it be said the director misses an opportunity to place his star front and center, unfortunately relegating just about everyone else in the obligatory international all-star cast." Ignaty Vishnevetsky of the AV Club rated the film as C+ and complained that Branagh's erratic direction more interested in cut glass and overhead shots than in suspicions and uncertainties bungles both the perfect puzzle logic of the crime and its devious Christopher Orr of The Atlantic said, "The film was visually sumptuous yet otherwise inert," and summed up Murder on the Orient Express is not a bad movie per se, merely one that feels self-indulgent and thoroughly unnecessary. Accolades. Sequel. Wall. In 2015, Christie's great-grandson James Pritchard, chairman of Agatha Christie Limited, expressed enthusiasm for sequels, citing the positive collaboration with Kenneth Branagh and the production team. In May 2017, Branagh expressed interest in further installments if the film were successful. On November 20, 2017, 20th Century Fox announced that a sequel. In an interview with Associated Press in December 2017, Branagh discussed developing an adaptation of Death on the Nile. "I think there are possibilities, aren't there? With 66 books and short stories and plays, she often brings people together in her own books actually. So innately she enjoyed that," he says. "You feel as though there is a world just like with Dickens. There's a complete world that she's created certain kinds of characters who live in her world that I think has real possibilities." In February 2018, Fox scheduled Death on the Nile for release on November 8, 2019, with Branagh officially signed to direct and reprise the role of Hercule Poirot. Later, Gal Gadot and Armie Hammer joined the cast, followed by Annette Bening as the new character Euphemia, Letitia Wright and Sophie Okonedo, as well as Russell Brand, Rose Leslie, and Ollie Fazal as a racement role played by George Kennedy in the 1978 film. Apart from that version, Christie's book of the same name had been adapted for a 2004 episode of the television series Agatha Christie's Poirot before making Branagh's film the third screen adaptation. Furthermore, actresses Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French were announced to reunite in the film, with Tom Bateman returning as Bouc as well. Following the casting of Jodie Comer, she dropped out due to scheduling conflicts and was replaced by Emma Mackey. Principal photography started on September 30, 2019, at Longcross Studios in Surrey, England, and was later moved to Morocco. A boat was built as well as a recreation of the Temple of Abu Simbel. The Tiffany yellow diamond was also used for the movie, which wrapped production around Christmas of the same year. Patrick Doyle returned to compose the music, frequently working on Branagh's projects. A teaser trailer was released on August 19 during Good Morning America. Death on the Nile underwent several delays, due in part to Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox and the COVID-19 pandemic. The film is currently scheduled for theatrical release on February 11, 2022.